All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody in part 24. Kind of crazy. This thing's been going on this long. Um, really excited to have the guests we have on tonight. Excited for everyone to get to hear from all three of them and learn from them and their journeys. For anybody new, anybody that hadn't.
Hey, can't hear you, Dave.
Can you hear me?
You good?
All right, that's it. Okay.
So y'all missed everything, or you heard all that? I don't know. We'll go ahead.
Missed all of it.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome
Missed
in.
it.
Welcome in. Part 24. Long story short, each coach will speak. They'll share their journey, and then what they want to share, what they've learned, and then we'll kind of take questions and then go from there. If you ask a question, I just obviously introduce yourself, name, and where you're from, just so we can kind of make it a little personal. And then I always forget to say this: if you want to drop your information in the chat, any contact, we got a lot of coaches on here from different levels to keep in touch. One of the main things to use this is for networking. So if you want to drop your information in the chat, feel free. But first up tonight, we have a guy that I've really gotten the pleasure to know. I don't know how long now, probably over 10 years. And I guess if you want to just find him, go somewhere in the 843 and you'll find him down there. Coastal South Carolina, down in Charleston somewhere. But we got J.D. Powell, the associate head coach at College of Charleston, on to share. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and it's all yours, Coach.
Man, I appreciate it, David. It's amazing when you say this is number 24. You know, it's number one, it just tells us how long this stuff's been going on, but also, you know, as I told you during the summer, man, just the impact that you've made. So we appreciate you putting this together. And then the guys that you got on here tonight, two of my favorite people, Steve Smith and Coach Christian, you know, guys I've known for probably 10 plus years. And so just think the world of those guys. So it's an honor to be on here with you guys. I appreciate you. Coach mentioned you share a little bit about your journey, you know, and so quickly, I grew up in the upstate of South Carolina. I'm 41 years old. I've been a part of Division I basketball now for almost 20 years. And I've been really blessed. I haven't left the state of South Carolina yet. And so really fortunate for that. I'm the son of a dairy farmer. My dad played college basketball at Western Carolina, and he was a farmer. And so when I was growing up, I was always either on a farm or I was in a gym. And I felt really blessed to get to do that with my dad. You know, I tell people all the time, if we think coaching is hard work, go try being a farmer. You know, that stuff's real hard. And so anytime that I start complaining about what's going on with our season, my dad's quick to remind me, you can come up here and start farming if you want. And I'll stop complaining pretty fast. But just got fortunate, you know, loved the game, knew I wanted to coach at an early age, probably by middle school or high school. Wasn't a good enough player to get recruited. And so went to Clemson University. Wanted to be a manager for Larry Shiat. Wanted to try to learn from him. And got lucky. I got to walk on and got to be a part of the ACC, got a scholarship, and got to have some unbelievable memories doing that. And just kind of went from there. Worked in the NBDL for a year. Worked as a basketball intern. One of my best friends saw a flyer that they had put up one time at the student union, I think at Clemson, and had just told me about it and turned into an internship with the NBA. And that helped me get to Furman University and then to Charleston Southern and the Citadel. And now we're going on season 7 at the College of Charleston with Earl Grant. And that's really been a lot of fun just to watch one of your really close friends have the success that he's had in his hometown. It's been a lot of fun to take that journey with him over the last 7 years and see the amazing things that he's been able to do here in Charleston.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Coach, you want to talk about kind of maybe some things you've learned either from different stops, from the guys you've worked with when you were at Clemson, NBA, anything?
Yeah. You know, I think whenever I was reading that, you know, the first thing that comes to my mind is to just be a lifelong learner. You know, that's just something that I'm really passionate about. I heard Kevin Eastman say that one time years and years ago. And Coach Eastman is one of my favorite people to hear speak at a clinic. And I think being a lifelong learner is just comes from a place of humility, and understanding that I don't care how long we're in it or what we're doing. We can always have something to learn, whether it's as a husband, as a parent, as a coach. We can always get better, and so just having a passion to learn, doing that so many different ways, whether it's something like this tonight, whether it's what you're reading, what podcast that you're listening to, just constantly trying to pick up something new. I really try to have the attitude of every single person that's placed in my life that I come across, there's something that I can learn from that person. And we had a guy that was involved with our program for a number of years as a character coach. He really taught me to be a good listener. And it's something that I didn't feel like I was very good at. And he taught me that by listening, we can learn. And I tell our team all the time, I think it's one of the greatest errors that we have in our country right now is that nobody wants to listen to anybody else. Everybody just wants to talk, and if they're not talking, they're thinking about what they want to say. And so I think one of the things I would say just from my journey, is be a learner. Always be looking for another way to learn. Always be looking for something that you can pick up from somebody else. And then the last thing I would say is just for guys that are young guys or that are trying to get into it, go find something that you can be really good at and go find a way to be great at it. I was a graduate assistant for Larry Davis at Furman University, and he really empowered me to get to do a lot of different things. But I think one of the mistakes that we make as we're trying to get into the business is we all want to get to do the scout, or we all want to recruit that player, whenever somebody needs to make sure that the little things run well. And Coach Davis always made a point to me is just be great at whatever it is that you're asked to do, whether it's laundry, whether it's ordering food, whatever it is, have a passion for it. One of my favorite quotes is Martin Luther King Jr. saying, be the greatest street sweeper so that all the angels of heaven say, there goes the greatest street sweeper. Whatever it is you're asked to do, just go be great at it and have a passion for it.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and start off questions for Coach Powell. Obviously, again, if you have a question, just introduce yourself, name, and what program you're affiliated with. Coach, I'll start off. Obviously, many people don't know, you mentioned you haven't left the state of South Carolina. You've worked at, I don't know if anyone else ever has, worked at all three schools in Charleston, each school being unique and you having to kind of change as you go from school to school. Can you talk about how you've evolved as a coach, going from a military school to a private Christian school to now, obviously, College of Charleston?
Yeah, so whenever I got the assistant's job at Charleston Southern University, Steve Smith was at USC Upstate, and I was 24 years old. And at the time in the Big South, we only had 2 assistants on staff. And it was probably the hardest year of coaching that I've ever had, because it was just, you had to do so many different things. And so I tell guys all the time now, when they talk to me about whether they're a junior college coach or, whatever level that they're at, one of the best things that you can have is to be at a spot where you get to have a lot of responsibility and influence. And so that was a great thing at Charleston Southern, because I almost got out. And it was really one of those things where after that first season, I knew that if I could survive that, then I could do anything. And it really just empowered me, it gave me a great sense of belief. Being at Charleston Southern really impacted my faith as well. One of the things that I think that we all have to realize, regardless of where your faith is, that, we can't live every day by the ups and downs of the wins and the losses, or the ups and the downs of our head coach. I learned several years ago that, I wanted to live for an audience of one. I didn't want to have my day ride the wave of just somebody else's mood, and so my mindset really just became, hey, I'm going to try to do this with excellence. I'm going to try to do it to the very best of my ability, focus on what I can control, and go from there. And that really empowered me at Charleston Southern, and then also at the Citadel. And then, now coming to the College of Charleston, I think the biggest thing for us was just to see the impact or the commitment to winning that they have at the College of Charleston. It's a really high level place. They've had a lot of success. We're going to have our 3rd straight NBA guy this year. And so, as I said, it's been a lot of fun to just go alongside Earl Grant and get to watch him do it. For those of you that know Coach Grant, he's just one of the most unique people that you'll ever come across. I tell people I've never met someone that has the ability to connect with so many different people of so many different ages, so many backgrounds, the way that Earl Grant can. And to be able to work with him and to learn from him has really been a blessing.
Anyone else got any questions for Coach?
I have one.
What's up, Coach?
What's up, JD?
How you doing tonight?
You talked about living for an audience of one, and I think one of the things when I think of you, I always think how happy you are, man, every time I see you. And I think that's like something that I think it's really underrated in our business. I think we can do our business in a certain way. I guess my question is like, how do you just do such a tremendous job of staying positive, staying upbeat, as well as doing a great job?
That's an amazing question. And, you would be a guy that I would always say the same. First of all, I see you tonight without your hat. I'm so used to seeing you every summer on the road with your GW hat on and smiling, and you've never met a stranger on the road. And so it's great to get to see you tonight. I think the biggest thing for me is just trying to be grounded in who you know that you are, and knowing where your strength comes from. I just always try to know that, we're really blessed, man. We get to coach basketball, and there are a lot of people in the world that are struggling with much harder things than what we have, trying to figure out how to guard a ball screen. And, we get to have an unbelievable impact in people's lives. I hope that we get to bring some cheer and some happiness to some people. I think we're seeing, just this summer, how much sports means to us. And then I think it's always important to remember our past. It was our second season at the College of Charleston, and we were off to a really good start. We had come off a bad year the year before, and we beat somebody one night. And my wife and I went to breakfast one morning, and we had never gotten to do that. And we literally sat down on a napkin, and we had written down, we looked up the last 10 seasons at the Citadel and Charleston Southern and what the records were each one of those years. And, we realized that we hadn't had a winning record in December in a long time. And so it just makes me really grateful, you know what I mean? And just really thankful to get to do this. And I know that it's a blessing.
Anyone else got a question for Coach Powell?
Yeah, I got one. Tiger Aldridge, Brunswick Community College, just right up the road, Highway 17 up there in North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
So, hey, Coach, I just want to know, what are some of the things that Coach Grant does as he got started there at College of Charleston that helped you guys reach that level of success that you're having now in the CAA, and some of the things you think that kind of separate him from, or do things that he may do differently from other guys you've worked with or worked under? So,
yeah. First of all, please tell Coach Shaw I said hello.
I sure will. Thank you.
I can't wait to get back up to Brunswick, go find me some Eastern North Carolina barbecue. But, I think so. It was unique. Like I've worked for 3 head coaches now that were first-time head coaches, and they were all really gifted in their own way. But one of the things that Earl Grant has an amazing ability for is to keep the main thing the main thing. And it's something that has really helped me as I continue to pursue becoming a first-time head coach, because I'm not like he is. I have a tendency to get caught up in the weeds, so to speak, whereas Coach Grant has an amazing ability to just focus on the main thing. And he said something really insightful to me one time. He said, you have to learn what you're willing to ignore. And that was just really powerful because, so many times I think we get caught up in so many things that we lose track of what's really important. And the thing that's most important is our players, and taking care of those guys. And, he just has an unbelievable ability to do that. He doesn't let a lot of things bother him. He doesn't have a lot of really high days. He doesn't have a lot of really low days. And so probably the thing that I will take from him most when I become a head coach is just the consistency that he has. He doesn't ride an emotional roller coaster. He treats everyone that he comes across with unbelievable respect. As I said, particularly in our city, like in Charleston, South Carolina, it doesn't matter if it's the president of the university or, you know, the parent of an 18-year-old kid that we're recruiting, he treats all of them the same, and just is an unbelievable relationship builder. And he does an outstanding job with that. He and Steve Smith, who's going to speak here in a minute, you know, are really close friends. And, you know, so the three of us have gotten to spend a lot of time together. I love to be able to be with Coach Grant and Steve and just kind of listen to them go back and forth. But, you know, Earl's a really unique human being.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Got any last questions for Coach Powell?
Yeah, what's up, JD, man? It's Lamar Barrett. How you doing?
I'm good. How about you tonight?
I'm good, man. Hey, look, there's a lot of young guys on this call, and can you talk about what you had to sacrifice or give up to achieve your current level of success? Because I don't think a lot of guys understand what it takes. You know, a lot of things you have to give up or sacrifice to be very successful. Yeah,
you know, that's a great question. You know, so when my career ended at Clemson, it didn't end the way that it was supposed to. You know, it wasn't a storybook type thing, and I really didn't think I wanted to be around basketball anymore. And I got out of it for a couple of months, and I took a job in retail making about $40,000 per year. You know, I thought I was wealthy. You know, I thought I had plenty of money, and just wasn't what I wanted to do. I had an opportunity to go be an intern in an NBA, but I got paid $25 per home game. And during my first 3 years, I worked part-time in the mall. I substitute taught. I did basketball lessons on the side. You know, I was just willing to do whatever I could do to just make a little bit of money to be able to hang around. You know, I'll never forget one time, my girlfriend at the time we had gone to Fazoli's in Greenville, and she was blown away because I was counting out the change to be able to buy some food. You know what I mean? And so I just try to tell young guys, I'm like, hey, look, like you got to buckle up. And I think it's gotten harder for young guys. I think it's harder right now than it was even 20 years ago because there's less opportunities, you know? And so it's just one of those things, man, where I always try to tell my children, my 3 little boys that I'm raising right now, is that, you know, I can promise you one way that it doesn't happen is if you don't try and if you don't dream. And so we're so quick to want to say, oh, it's going to be too hard. Yeah, it is hard. But if you can put your mind to it and you can sacrifice, you can go and get it done. It's just really about finding an opportunity and finding a place where you can find a niche and find a way to break in.
Appreciate that, man. But I don't miss those Hofstra-Charleston matchups. Trust me, I don't.
Nah, I definitely don't. But come see us in Charleston sometime, okay?
Oh, I'll definitely be there. Y'all got pros.
I need some more. That's the problem.
Hey, Dave, how you doing? Larry Davis.
Hey, Coach, what's going on?
Doing good. Just hearing your story and fascinated by your travels. I've heard it many times before, but every time I hear you speak, I hear something different. Tell me a little bit about how you balance your life in terms of basketball. And, you know, basketball can kind of be overwhelming sometimes as a college coach. With you having a family, and I heard you mention you got 3 boys, how do you balance all that, being, you know, the time with basketball, the time with your family, your spiritual time, and then being able to be a husband? How has that been for you, and how have you dealt with that?
Wow. So I have 3 little boys. They're 10, 8, and 5. We call them fast, faster, and fastest. And then I've been blessed to have an amazing wife of going on 13 years now. I always, first of all, try to tell guys as they're getting into it and they tell me that they have a significant other, I say, hey, you got to make sure you guys are on the same page, you know, because you guys are going into this thing together. My wife was not a sports girl. She was a vocal performance major in college. And so she'd probably never been to 5 basketball games in her life. And then the first year we're dating, she has to go to like 15. But we've been fortunate to go to a lot of games and get to travel, you know, and do a lot of things. But it's hard, you know, and, you know, the COVID mess over the last couple of months has really given me an opportunity to spend more time with my kids. I got to see my son play 2 baseball games this week. I didn't see my sons play 2 games all of last year. And so it is hard, and it's just kind of one of those things where my mindset on it and my wife's mindset is that when I'm here, when I'm in the house, I try to completely be in the house. We have a rule. She has a rule. I don't come in the house on the phone. And, I know I don't have a lot of time to give my kids, but I want to give them the time that I do have, and Dabo Sweeney at Clemson said it one time really, really well. He said, there are plenty of dads that have all the time in the world and give their children none. If I can give the kids all the small amount that I have, then I've given them as much as I can. And that just really stuck with me. My children get to be around, our players all the time. And I'm really thankful for that. I'm thankful for the influence that our players have in my children's life. So, the biggest thing is I try to stick to a routine. I try to make sure that I, have my time in the morning. I have to get some reading in before my kids get up, because once my kids get up and the house starts moving, it gets noisy till about 9 p.m. But biggest thing is we have to try to do it together. My wife, my kids, when we made it to the NCAA tournament, I was really thankful that my kids got to have that experience with us, because all of us in coaching, our families do that with us. We do not do it on our own, that's for sure.
We got one more. We got time for one more question if anyone has one. If not, Coach Powell, you got anything you want to leave everyone with?
Man, I'm just thankful for the opportunity. Again, David, it's amazing what you've created, what you've been able to do these last 6 months with this. And so thank you for letting me be a part of it. I'm excited to hear these other guys tonight.
Absolutely. No, so thank you again for coming on, and I'm glad that I know this won't definitely be the last time we talk. So we'll move on to the next one. I wasn't sure if he was going to be sleeping or not. I know sometimes he'll go off on me. I won't hear from him. So, man, this guy I've really gotten to know for the past couple of years, and he's one of those dudes that people tell you, call when you don't have players, call and check in. He does that, no doubt, and as does Coach Powell. But I really enjoy getting to learn from Coach Smith. So I'm excited that he's come on and going to share with us his journey. So without further ado, the Gorilla, Coach Smith.
How's everybody doing? I appreciate that, David. And Coach Powell, I'll tell you this too, man, that when me and Grant, we obviously were working together when he got the job down there. And, he came to me and we were talking about his staff. And he said, listen, one guy for sure is going to be J.D. Powell. And he said, now, we got to figure the rest of it out, but he's my first hire. So I just want you to know how much highly he thinks of you as well, going down there to Charleston, because he wasn't going down there without you. So you need to know that now. I don't know if he ever told you that, but that's what he relayed to me. I'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, everybody, I know it's a lot of familiar faces on here that I've seen and has been on some Zooms before. Hopefully it's not too redundant, my story and the journey, but, I'll give it to you again. From a small town, Hampton, South Carolina. Actually, it's called Barnville, South Carolina. Larry Davis is on here. He's very familiar. Me and Larry actually grew up about 30, maybe 25, 30 minutes apart. Larry was a really good player. Larry averaged 40 a game. And when we went in there, my goal was to not let Larry get 40 when we played. And I don't think he ever got 40 on me, Larry. You might have got 20, 25, but you didn't get that 40, Larry. Never got 40 on me. But small town, Hampton, South Carolina, that's down near Beaufort, Hilton Head Island. Grew up there, played high school basketball there. Went to Morgan State out of high school. Didn't have a great career up at Morgan. Left Morgan, actually went into the Army for a few years. Going into the Army was one of the best things I ever could have did. I didn't know it going in, but was trying to figure out how to pay for the last couple of years of college. So I went and had my best friend's dad was Lieutenant Colonel in the Army. He convinced me to do it. I went into the Army. While I'm in the Army, I found out they got an all-Army basketball team. I just happened to be in the gym playing one day. One of the coaches was in there. They saw me playing, asked me to play on the post team, started playing post team, and then got invited out to Killeen, Texas to play on the All-Army team. Finished my education while I was in the Army, got out of the Army, moved back to Columbia, South Carolina. My wife was actually at the University of South Carolina. So I go back there. I'm working at Fort Jackson. I'll get a call from a friend, actually a friend of mine who was from Estill, South Carolina, not too far from where we're from. She called me and said, hey, one of her friends has gotten a job at Allen University. Would I be interested in coaching? Like JD, I was making $60,000. I was in computer IT. I thought I was on top of the world. So I was like, nah, I'm not interested. You know, it wasn't something I set out to do, to be honest with you guys. Like a lot of you guys had a plan to be a collegiate coach. That's not what my plan was. My plan was to make money, be an engineer or something like that. So I was there. I was making $60,000 at Fort Jackson. I go over to Allen University, help this young lady out. You know, we have a really good year that year that I was over there. At the end of the season, I look up and her telephone's ringing off the hook. I mean, she's getting job offers from everybody. And I'm looking around like, wait a minute now, is this how this works? Like, you got to be kidding me. So she's turning down jobs. So then I called my old college coach and asked him, I said, hey, I think I want to get into college coaching. So he tells me the assistant that was at Morgan at the time when I was there, he had just gotten a job at Greensboro College in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I call him up. His name was Lynn Ramage. Lynn tells me, well, I don't have anything, but the guy that I'm replacing took the job in South Carolina. Are you still back in South Carolina? I said, well, yeah, actually I am. That guy happened to be Eddie Payne. You know, like I said, guys, I'm just running around. I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making cold phone calls and just trying to figure it out. I really don't know how connected Eddie Payne is in the business and where he's been. But, you know, I sit down with Eddie Payne, and actually he hires me on the spot. But it was at that time, USC Spartanburg was a Division II, like Coach Powell said. It was a Division II school. It was only paying me $20,000. He said, listen, I can get you some more money. Your degree is in computer information. What if you work in our IT department here at the university in the mornings and up until noon, and then you come on over to basketball after lunch? I said, perfect. So he got me another $20,000 that way. So it gets up to 40. And so I'm there with him. We have a lot of success. We go to some Division II Elite Eights, never quite get to the Final Four. We went in the Peach Belt a couple years. We have some really good players. One of the first players I recruited was CJ Paul. CJ Paul is the older brother of Chris Paul. So that's my relationship with CP3 and that organization from all those years. I think that was in 2002 when I did that. So I stay over there. We have a lot of success. Then CY, Charlton Young, he gets the job at Georgia Southern. And I'll tell you how our relationship starts. You know, CY is one of the funniest guys you ever meet. I don't know if you guys have met him, if you know him. If you don't know him, you should get to know him. One of the funniest guys you're ever gonna meet. So, you know, it's at a Final Four. And this was also a great networking piece that some of you younger guys should maybe look into doing. We used to play pickup every Final Four. We get a pickup game. We get about 20 guys and we close it off. We get a secret location because once everybody found out we were doing it, everybody was trying to come in and play, and then it'd be overcrowded. So we get about 20 dudes, and whatever city we were in that was hosting the Final Four, we get the coach that's, you know, from the university in that city. And we say, hey man, open the gym at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be there from about 9 to 12. And so this was our little networking deal. But anyway, me and CY got to really know each other that time at that Final Four. So the next Final Four we go to, CY gets fired from Auburn. So I see him and I'm trying to, you know, console him a little bit. I'm at Upstate, but I'm like, hey man, you know, it's gonna be all right, you know. He like, man, I appreciate you looking out for me, young fella, but I'm gonna be all right. He's like, you know what? You need to come and go with me. So we go to a couple banquets. I didn't have any clothes. I'm just in sweats and things like that. He gives me a sport coat and we go to a couple different meetings and we continue to network. And that's how our relationship bloomed. And then another thing I did was, CY called me. He got the job at Georgia Tech a year later. He went from Auburn to Chattanooga to Georgia Tech. He gets a job at Georgia Tech. He calls me about a player down in Charleston. He wants to recruit this particular player. I tell him, I say, hey, man, let me tell you, the best player in Charleston is a guy named Chris Middleton. So he comes, he's doing some research on Chris Middleton. He gets Paul Hewitt on the phone with me. So he introduced me to Paul Hewitt. Him and Paul Hewitt come down to Charleston. I meet him down there. I take him over to Porter-Gaud to see Chris Middleton. They didn't take Chris Middleton, but they were blown away. So from that point forward, I had two friends, so to speak, in the business that were always going to do anything to try to help me. So Paul Hewitt was trying to help me with jobs. CY was trying to help me with jobs. Through Paul Hewitt, I met Bobby Crimmins. So Bobby Crimmins became a friend. So that's kind of how my career kind of started and kind of evolved from there. Right? So then fast forward, CY gets a job at Georgia Southern. He calls me up, said, hey, man, I want you to go with me to Georgia Southern. I go with him to Georgia Southern. We have some success. We get to number 2 in the league. We're right there. We're tied with Wofford, but we're one game behind Davidson. 3 years later, the Clemson job comes open. So I got CY's fighting for me for Clemson. Paul Hewitt's fighting for me for Clemson. Bobby Crimmins is fighting for me for Clemson. Eddie Payne is fighting for me for Clemson. So I end up at Clemson. I stay at Clemson for 7 years. Had an unfortunate situation there. You know, when stuff happened at Clemson, you know, through CY again, I became very good friends with Coach Hamilton. I see Coach Hamilton in June when he could be out. You know, they were doing the high school stuff. They were recruiting in Charlotte. I go over there, sit with him. You know, he looks me in my face. He say, listen, don't you worry about nothing, Coach. I got you. You're going to be okay. I got you. As soon as I get something, you all right. You know, this is June. In mid-July, he calls me and say, hey, Coach, this is going to happen. Just be ready. And so I've been down here for a year. Been very fortunate. We won the ACC. So been very blessed. Been very blessed to be the stops that I've had a lot of success along the way. And that's kind of my journey. That's kind of how I've gotten to where I am now. You know, a nugget that I would say, guys, is first, you know, I used to, because I came up from those levels, the competitor in you always want to try to get in recruiting battles and win recruiting battles. So I give you the one nugget that I think all you guys should take. Try to avoid recruiting battles when you can. When you can, get in early, evaluate, do your job, and get out. You know, I think everybody wants to move up the ladder and recruit a high-level player. That's why you want to move. You know, say, I can get this player now, I'm at this level. I can get this player, I'm at this level. Well, you just got to work like you're at the same level that you already are, and just try to recruit a higher-level player, get him and get out of there. You got to trust your eyes. You got to come up with a formula that you believe in and you trust. And when you see a player that meets your standard of what you're looking for, go ahead and try to get it done. Because the more you try to wait and you try to get in these recruiting wars, it gets muddy. It just gets too cloudy, and you end up wasting a lot of man hours recruiting players that you can't get. So that's the one nugget I give you guys in recruiting is come up with a formula that you think works. I mean, that you like, how you want to identify players, evaluate, and get out of there. Evaluate and get out of there. So I don't know what else you got, Bentley. Is there any questions or anything else you want me to cover? But I'm sure some guys will have some questions about some stuff on here.
No, absolutely. We'll go ahead and open up for questions. So if you have a question for Coach Smith, go ahead and fire away.
Coach, Dr. Ford, Putnam High School now. Can you just go over your leadership aspect from the Army to now that you instill in your guys at Florida State?
I think that from the leadership aspect is always just discipline and accountability. You know, in the Army, it's a lot of accountability in the Army. I think, Coach, you were in the Army, right? You were in or are in?
I'm sorry, man. It's the Navy. You know, it's on the way to go.
My bad. Well, in the Army, you know, you always given a battle buddy. You know, I don't know what they call it in the Navy, but you're given a battle buddy, and you're assigned to that guy, and that's your partner in crime. You know, and when he messes up, you mess up. And I think that helps you hold him accountable to hold yourself accountable. And so one of the things that you do as a coach is just accountability, man. Just accountability. Guys know when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Guys know when other guys are not supposed to be doing. But when you have a culture, when you have the right culture, you know, guys hold each other accountable. You know, I think that's the biggest thing I take from that. Just the accountability and the discipline aspect of it.
Sir,
We got Coach Belfield on here too, so I know he's probably real familiar with the battle buddies and all that in the Army as well.
Roderick's actually a secret Army fan too. We've had conversations before.
Oh man, you hurt my feelings.
Hey, Steve, question for you real quick. I mean, talk about, obviously you touched on the journey, how you got to Florida State, and then, you know, you guys had an unbelievable season last year. You're probably going to be a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Just talk about just the 12 months as a whole, just the emotional journey of, you know, where it started to where it ended, and then to not be able to take part in the NCAA tournament after a great year.
Oh man, that's a great question, because you know all of us on here, and you know that's the first time in ACC, and including this year, that was 8 years in ACC, and first time winning it. And there's a lot of guys on here that's been coaching a long time, and you probably haven't had an opportunity to win your league, and we felt like we were good enough to even win a national championship. So it was a very emotional high and then a letdown, because, you know, I tell you one thing, though, that Coach Ham does an unbelievable job of being down here with him. I think about Earl a lot around Coach, actually, because Coach, he really talks about coaching the mind and the spirit. He believes in coaching their mind and their spirit more than just their athletic ability. He said, if you coach their mind and their spirits, Coach, that's going to allow you to coach them on the floor. So we do a lot with our guys off the court and away from basketball to kind of help them emotionally, so that we can coach them. Because, you know, we play a lot of different dudes and things like that. So we don't want no surprises with guys being unhappy, things like that. But anyway, so we lead up, you know, we go into preseason. It's a build up, it's a grind in preseason. You know, you're out there in the sand. You know, another thing about Coach Ham, he's an NBA guy. So, you know, I don't know if guys know this, but before he took the Florida State job, he was in the NBA. He was the last coach with Washington Wizards when Michael Jordan was there. So a lot of his philosophy comes from that way. So we don't do any pounding or anything hard on their body, on the pavement or anything like that. All our preseason conditioning is in sand. Like, we got beach volleyball courts here, and that's the only place that we take them to condition. When we're running when we're disciplining guys in the gym, they're on bikes. He got 10 bikes lined up on the side of the court. So if he feel guys need to be running or doing something extra, they get over there on those bikes. But anyway, to go where the question that you asked was, so we're doing all this preseason conditioning. You know, it's early mornings, it's cold. I mean, I know it's Florida, guys, but it's North Florida now, so 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, it get 50 out there when you got no shirts and shoes and socks on. So we're out there, we're grinding in the mornings, and then, you know, we lose our first ACC game. We lose our first game at Pitt. So everybody's in shock, like we're supposed to be this good team, but damn, maybe we're not good as we think we are. But again, because he never panicked. I mean, all the assistant coaches, we're looking around, especially me, I'm like, God, I can't believe we lost at Pitt. You know, Pitt, when, you know, they're at the bottom of the league, we're supposed to be at the top. But he never panicked. He said, Coach, just get them back in there, keep grinding. We're going to be okay, Coach. We're going to be okay. So, again, it's an emotional drop-off there because we're not sure how good we are. We have a couple close non-conference games. Western Carolina, I think Western Carolina had us down by maybe 18. South Florida, they came and gave us a tussle. We're battling with South Florida. Even North Florida played us close. And then we kind of hit our stride, which is what he believed in. We hit our stride about midway through the ACC season. So now everybody's feeling good. You know how it is. Hey, media's coming around. Guys are rock stars. You're walking into practice now. It's 10 reporters at the door. So now you're trying to tame your guys back down. You're trying to, hey, guys, just stay focused, stay locked in. Don't let all this become a distraction. CY actually does a really good job. He has scouting reports. He always plays some type of movie before the scouting report. He'll play a little clip of a movie to kind of break the mold. So I remember one of the clips he played, and he'll have our video guy kind of play with it a little bit. So one of the clips he played was, you guys remember the scene from, I think it's American Gangster. American Gangster when, I can't think, Denzel and Cuba Gooding Jr., he makes the knockoff stuff that Denzel and them are selling, right? So CY clips it, and the knockoff stuff, you know, Cuba's in there snorting the stuff. He put, that's the outside noise. That's the outside noise. And then, he says, this blue magic, I don't care what you call it, it's blue magic, but the blue magic represented Florida State brand basketball. Block out all the outside noise, stay with the blue magic Florida State brand basketball, and we're going to be okay. But just little things like that. And, the guys they get it. They relate to things like that. And that's just some of the things we did to try to keep them, we tried to break the monotony up a little bit. We started winning. We just did little things like that, which I thought was really good. And then we won the league. And then we're getting ready to play, and people are thinking, and we all thought that we had a chance to win the national championship because of how we play. We play so different that it's not hard for people to prepare for you, especially in a quick turnaround and in a tournament setting. Like, it'll be very hard to prepare how we're going to defend because we're not letting you get catches. We're not letting you run your offense. It's just really hard. So you're going to have to put in a whole bunch of new stuff when you come in to play Florida State. I just tell you that right now. You're not going to run what you've been running all year. So we felt really good about it. And then obviously for them to cancel it, and our guys were really emotional, and we just had to do a good job. We had a sports psychiatrist come in and kind of talk to those guys, try to help them through it. Patrick Williams didn't want to leave. Patrick Williams was going to be a lottery pick, and he came in office. He said, Coach, I never got a chance to live out my dream. My dream was to play in the ACC tournament and play in the NCAA tournament. And I don't have a chance to do that, so I'm staying. And Coach Ham was like, you going to be a top 15 pick, you leaving. And he was like, well, y'all can't make me leave. And we just had to sit him down and tell him, like, this is what's best for you, man. You need to go. So that's about it. So it's real up and down, JD. But that's kind of how we handle some of the things.
Hey, what's going on, Coach Smith? Darrell Robinson, head boys basketball coach, Danville High School in Illinois.
What's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm okay, man. How you doing? I got a chance to listen to Coach Ham on the Zoom the other day. So he was talking about the spiritual and everything else. Then he was talking about having sex education, drug education, and media training with the players and stuff, and he was like, he wanted to get into too much detail with it. But one thing he was talking about was he said y'all have call-outs like once a week. I guess the players have a chance of calling out each other. Could you explain a little bit more on that?
Yeah, actually, that goes back to the accountability I was talking about a little bit earlier. It's actually really good because our players respond to it. Basically, what it is, if there's anything on any player's mind about another player, he has one opportunity to call him out. But he has to give him something. We call it, you got to give him some sugar and some spice. So before you give him the spice and call him out, You got to give him a little sugar. Tell him something good you've been doing. Hey, so it's sort of like, hey, man, you know what? You've been doing a pretty good job of this, pretty good job of that. But this is what I got an issue with you with. You don't play hard. You don't communicate, whatever it is. And our guys are really, really good about responding to it, to be honest with you. I mean, nobody takes it personal. It usually ends up really good. And then after you get called out, they hug and you go about your business. But it's really good. Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Hey, Coach Steve, how you doing? Sorry, my camera's not working. Andre Honeycook from Manhattan College. I just got a question. So you talked about your journey and working with different coaches. So can you just talk about how you adapted to each coaching style, maximizing your impact and learning, and how you built relationships with each coach?
Man, that's great. That's a great question because that is a key to, I think, to being able to help your coach. I'm in a role as an assistant coach, right? And so you gotta assist. You gotta assist the head coach. So what better way to assist him is sitting down and talking to him and learning exactly. You got to learn him, and you got to learn what he wants from you. Now, a lot of people come in with egos and they want to try to get the coach's ear. And I'm sure we got Coach Christian on here so he can tell you, guys want to come in, they want to have the head coach's ear. They want to be able to tell the head coach this and he run this play. They want to tell him this and he run this defense. Well, head coaches pretty much got an idea of how they want to play. They know what they want. They've been waiting for this opportunity their whole life. So it's your job to kind of learn his philosophy, learn how he wants to play, and then figure out a way to incorporate yourself in that. So, like, you got different coaches. Like I was at Clemson, with Coach Brownell. Coach Brownell was, he want to run a lot of plays. He want to run a lot of different sets. He's going to be soft, pack line. So even though that's probably not how you want to play, that's how he wants to play. So you gotta study that with him. Sometimes you watch film and you go in there and you ask him questions like, hey, coach, listen, this happened right here. What you think about this? How do you feel about this action? Or how do you feel like we guarded this or things like that? So when you go on the floor and you start talking to guys one-on-one, you can echo his message. The one thing that head coaches, I would think, worry about the most with assistants is they want one unified voice, one unified message coming out of that office to those players. So even though you might want to do something different when you get you a head job, right now you work for somebody else. So you got to learn what he wants, how he wants it taught, and then incorporate yourself in that. So now I come down to Florida State, and Coach Ham, he wants to be up the floor. He's going to deny every catch. I mean, I remember the first practice, he was like, I want them to see your back. Somebody's driving that ball's being driven. Your job is to go to your man. So if I'm guarding a guy on the wing and somebody's driving it down the middle of the floor from the top, most guys come over and help. No, your job is to make sure he don't have a pass out of there. We got a 7-footer at the rim that's going to challenge it at the rim. That's his job. So the guy on the ball has to do a good job of trying to contain it, but if he gets beat, he got to stay on his hip. There's going to be a 7-footer at the rim that's going to challenge the shot, but your job is to go to your man. Now, Brad Brownell was don't ever get split. Force the pass. So they drive from the top, you don't get split. So now you got to learn those two things. And you can't go in with what you think. You got to go with what the head coach thinks. So that would be my advice is learn exactly what he wants, learn how he wants to teach it, and then figure out a way to incorporate yourself in that.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Coach Smith, Larry Davis here, your
What's up,
longtime
LT?
buddy here. What's going on? Hey, I heard you talk about your journey, and I've heard your story before as well. I've taken a lot of nuggets from you and Coach Powell. One of the things that I want you to share is what has been one of the most important things that has helped you along your journey and that has helped you propel to
I think I heard it, but you kind of broke up a little bit there. I think the question was, what's a couple things that have helped me prepare to get to the propel to get to the highest level? Is that was the question?
That's correct.
Again, I would think, Larry, it's been just relationships, genuine relationships that I've been able to develop with people. And I developed those relationships when I didn't need them per se. Like I said, just the relationship I had with CY, the relationship I had with Earl and those guys, they're always genuine relationships that we always were trying to help each other. And before long, you know, somebody was in a situation to help another person. You know, I think, you know, a lot of times now what guys lean on is, obviously this Zoom is a networking piece. And, you know, a lot of guys have my number. But when a job comes open, a lot of guys will reach out and they'll try to, you know, say, hey, man, can you help me with this? Help me with that. Help me with this. And that becomes difficult because, you know, your credibility is on the line right now for a guy you know him, but you really don't know him, you know? So it's a lot easier when you have a pure relationship and you know this guy and you can stand on the table for somebody. You can say, hey, listen, I can call Coach Christian and say, listen, man, I'm telling you, this the guy for the job. If you don't hire this guy, you're messing it up, okay? This guy gonna help you win a championship over there. Like, you have to have those type relationships, and that he have to be strong enough, you know, where and then my relationship with him has to be strong enough where he listened to it. But I think you develop those relationships now when it's pure, it's no hidden agenda or anything like that. And I think when those opportunities and things come up, then you got an advocate for you. And I think that's what's helped me in my career. You know, like I said, I went all the way back to 20 years ago when I first met CY. And he's been one of the guys that's been an advocate for me. Coach Grant, you know, he's from South Carolina, so I've been knowing him for years. You know, he's been an advocate for me. We've been advocates for each other. Paul Hewitt, I met him just trying to help him recruit Chris Middleton. And, you know, he's been an advocate for me, you know. So just those things like that, I would say, just genuine relationships and friendships that I've built throughout the years have helped. That's what's helped my career. Because, you know, it's always somebody else that's going to get you the job that I've noticed. It's always somebody else that's made a call for you and been able to help you get a job.
Got any more questions for Coach Smith? Any last questions for Coach?
Steve, what's up, man? Lamar
What's up,
back.
Barrett? How you
What's
doing,
going
man?
on?
I'm good.
I'm good. Quick
Unmask.
question. What, huh?
I said unmask.
What brings you energy and excitement? Because I mean, you've been doing it for a while now. But what brings you energy and excitement?
Man, I just the everyday competitiveness and trying to win. You know, obviously winning. And then I would say just seeing young men, seeing kids grow, you being able to help kids grow, and also just being able to help people grow. One of the things I've taken pride in is trying to help people get jobs. Like that gives me energy and excitement, just trying to help somebody else get a job. Because we've been blessed, like Coach said, man, to be coaching in the ACC, to come from a little country town in Barnville, South Carolina. Like, I've been blessed. So to help somebody else get a job, that gives me energy and excitement. To help these guys get to where they're trying to get to, you know, have NBA chance at NBA and graduating and getting degrees, that gives you energy and excitement. That's what does it for me. That's what does it for me, man. Like, you know, this year was a hard year for me because we didn't have it wasn't a whole lot of movement. So wasn't a lot of job opportunities offered. And I know a lot of guys were out there and they were trying to get some jobs and it wasn't anything that they could get. And so I felt personally like, damn, I couldn't help nobody this year. It wasn't a job. It wasn't anything out there I could help anybody with this year. So I felt like I let people down, you know, because usually, you know, it's one or two guys every year that I'm able to help get a job that like I said, but it comes from a genuine relationship that we have.
Appreciate it, man. I thought you was gonna be joining me from last summer when we was at CP3.
Yeah. Keith, I got another question. Being from South Carolina, you mentioned earlier that we kind of grew up from one another. Florida State has done really well in North and South Carolina as far as recruiting. What has led to your success in recruiting in the state, other than your relationships and the ties that you have in South Carolina?
Man, I think to be honest with you, I think some of the South Carolina kids are a little bit under recruited. So I think if you can get in there and evaluate those kids early and get on them, I think they appreciate that. You know, in North Carolina, I think that was the same thing with Patrick Williams a year ago. I think CY did a good job of getting in there and identifying Patrick Williams when nobody else was really recruiting him. I kind of think he kind of blew up at the end, but you know, he's a pretty loyal kid. So, and for the most part, when you recruit good kids, and that's what I mean, when you recruit good kids, most of those kids are pretty loyal. So if you get in there and you can evaluate them and identify them, like this is the one that I want, I think that'll help you get those kids in the end. You know, I think when everybody's in there recruiting them, man, these kids, they get tired of answering the phone and coaches tell them the same thing. Hey, we're gonna give you the ball. Our system fits you. You fit our style. They hear that a million times. So by the time all that stuff happens, you already dug in there and you got a relationship with those kids that you can supersede all that type stuff. Because everybody, you're in ACC, everybody got great facilities. Everybody gonna charter flights. Everybody got meals. So what makes you different? You know, it's not a lot of things that make you different. What makes you different is the relationship that you have with those kids.
Awesome. Obviously, sort of similar to Coach Powell. Coach Smith, man, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, I've gotten to follow your journey and watch really close, being connected to you and forming that genuine relationship you were talking about through the years, and whether it's a phone call, whether it's a meal when you're in town, whatnot. And obviously, you're more than just a colleague and you're a friend. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing.
I appreciate you, Bentley. And anytime I can do anything for you, let me know. And that goes for anybody on this Zoom, man, because like I said, it's a lot of guys that I see on here and a lot of guys I've seen on some other Zooms as well. And I know that you guys are working and you're trying to figure it out and we're trying to develop relationships. So if I can help anybody, feel free to reach out to me, man. If I don't get back with you in an hour, I get back with you the next day for sure. All right.
Awesome. If he don't get back with you, he's sleeping.
Gorillas don't sleep, Bentley. I tell you that all the time.
No, but honestly, man, again, appreciate you, Coach. So the one of the cool things about these Zooms is you get to hear from people that you know and have watched for a while, but you also get to meet people and hear different journeys that you haven't, or maybe you've observed from a distance. So that's true about our next speaker is Coach Christian. Obviously, you know, he's very well known, very good coach around the country. At his stops from when he was an assistant and now a head coach. So without further ado, I'm really excited to hear from Coach Jamion Christian.
Yeah, what's up? How's everybody doing tonight, man? It's great to see everybody, and it's always great to be on here. So I appreciate the invite. You know, I'll kind of go through my journey a little bit, my story a little bit, and you know, I don't know everyone on here, so it'll be your first time getting to know me, but I'm excited about it. JD, you know, I know you, man. I always love hearing from you and seeing you. And Steve, man, we got to get connected, man. Like, I love your story. I love the work you've been able to do, and I'd love to be a guy that I can help you out in any kind of way. So I want to lean on that and make sure I'm doing a great job there. So let's get connected after this. Again, Jamion Christian here. I'm the head coach at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. Like these two guys, man, I'm from a small country town in Virginia called New Kent, Virginia. It's in between Richmond and Williamsburg. Not many people stop there, but for gas, and they're either on the way to Colonial Williamsburg or to the beach, or they're on the way into Richmond for something. So, you know, I feel like there's some tremendous advantages in growing up in an area where you just have, you know, I call them great country values. You know, where everything in my town was just about how you treated people. The most important thing you had was your name. You know, not everybody in our family, not everybody in our town had a lot. So your name meant a lot, and your name was really like currency. And so I'm really fortunate to kind of grow up in an area like that where, you know, everything you're doing is just trying to stand on your name. Right. And so, you know, I played high school basketball, New Kent High School. We won a state title. I was one of these guys that was like really, really lightly recruited until the very end. And then I ran into a guy named Milan Brown at the very end. And Milan Brown worked with JD at Charleston. And, you know, Milan kind of came in. And so I think it's crazy now because recruiting is so early. But, you know, early 2000s, this recruiting and AAU thing was just kind of starting to take off a bit. And so Milan kind of found me. I was Virginia High School State Player of the Year in 2000. And he finds me in the beginning of April. And it was wild because I didn't have anything. You know, I mean, I had like VMI or I had some things like that. But, you know, I really wasn't interested in going to a school where there was no girls, just to be honest with you. So I was willing to wait it out. But, you know, so I always kind of rationalize with our recruits. You know, I've kind of been there and, you know, waiting around for something. And then when something comes to the table, like all of us good recruiters, like Steve kind of mentioned, you know, people get in and they want you to kind of commit and get it done early. And sometimes it just take a little bit longer process than that. And so I go on, I go to Mount St. Mary's. I play for Milan. Well, Milan actually leaves me before I get there. So my recruiting coach leaves me, but Coach Jim Phelan was the head coach there. And Coach Phelan, 820 victories at Mount St. Mary's. He coached there for 49 years. He's a legend in college basketball circles. He's in College Basketball Hall of Fame. So I had a chance to play for a guy who was just like, he had an unbelievable ability to connect with our team and to connect with me, even though he was, you know, I think he was like 82 years old at the time or something. You know, we had the oldest coaching staff in the country, and he just did an unbelievable job of connecting with us. And, you know, I think when you have a chance to play for and work for some of the best, I think if you're observant, you get an opportunity to learn a ton. And when Coach Phelan was a guy, you know, he always wanted to play fast, and people knew how fast and loose he was with his offense, how he wanted to play. But I just felt like how he treated us as a person was really unique. You know, while I was there, I ended up playing baseball for a year while I was at Mount St. Mary's, and I wouldn't have played if he didn't ask me to do it. You know, he just felt like all the workouts and stuff were overkill, and he wanted all the guys to enjoy working out and enjoy playing every day. And he wanted to give you a ton of freedom. You know, so we get to the springtime, and he said, hey, we're just going to play pickup, you know, the month of April. You guys are going to play 3 times a week. He just gave us so much freedom to kind of grow our games. And, you know, he was just huge on that. And, you know, I kind of look at it now. We have so many workouts and so many times and everything's so structured. And we always say, man, our guys don't compete. But I also think we don't give them the platform to compete. You know, we're always telling them where they have to go and how to set it up. And we're always keeping score for them. And we're always settling their fights. And, you know, he didn't do that. And we had a lot of fights at the Mount while I was there because guys would play and guys would get pissed because other guys didn't want to play. And so it's just a great environment to play in. Mount St. Mary's is a tremendous place where they love basketball. And we have great crowds and all that. And, you know, now I'll tell you this, when I was there, we weren't very good, you know, so this notion that you have to be a great player to be a great coach, I don't necessarily believe in. And, you know, we had this team of guys who were so talented. I mean, we had a guy named Melvin Whitaker, who's the number 5 player in the country coming out of high school at one point and kind of had a detour and ended up at Mount St. Mary's and was just one of the most incredible players that ever been around. You know, that time the NEC had 2 guys back-to-back drafted into the NBA. So the NEC was a great league at that time. And, you know, our team was as talented as any team that was in our league by far. Like my roommate was a top 75 player coming out of high school and just kind of didn't make it. And so one of the things you always see with our teams is that we're really solid in the people that we take. And I learned that from the guys that I played with. You know, these guys were great friends. Like if we're going to go out on a Friday night or go to Vegas or something on Saturday, like these are the guys you want to go out with. But if you're going to go to war on a Wednesday and Saturday night for a game, I think you got to differentiate what fun is. And so although I love those guys, we connected really well. I just learned as a player, man, I want to be with guys that I want to go to war with every day, that are going to be locked into the basketball stuff, that aren't going to be getting caught up in stuff that doesn't matter. And so you kind of learn that through your playing experience. And then the thing for me, being a guy from a country town where it wasn't that diverse, I got a chance in college to kind of be friends with people that were not like me, that were different. And I thought that's really helped me as a coach, being able to connect with people from all different kinds of backgrounds because my team was at. And I think that was really important for me. You know, we had guys from every background imaginable, every different kind of struggle, some with no struggle, some with a ton of privilege. But the locker room for me was a place where I could really learn and connect with people. And I've really tried to lean on that as a former player and a guy that was in the locker room, a bunch of guys for a long time. You know, so, you know, we play there, you know, we're not very good. But I try to soak up and learn everything. I get to my senior year. Coach Brown takes over as the head coach. I don't know if JD ever told you this story. So he takes over the head coach. And this guy recruited me. I was going to leave after my sophomore year. I had a great year. I was going to leave because I had like a great year and finished off on a real tear. And he comes back and kind of says, "Oh, you got to stay. We need you. We're going to build around you." And then we get to like midway through my junior year, and they're like, "Nope, we're going to go young. We're going to play all these young guys. And, you know, all your older guys are just going to kind of sit and wait." And it wasn't like he sat us down and said it to us that eloquently either, you know. So, but what he did do when I was a senior was he did always give me the platform to be able to connect and teach to our team. And so I'm a senior. I think I started like 90% of my games my first 3 years. I started played in 8 games as a senior. So the numbers don't even look correct or look right, but I recognize as a coach. And, you know, one of my assistant coaches, like I walk in the office one day and I'm trying to he's watching film as guys are always doing. And I'm like, "Well, coach, how do you guys know, you know, what you're looking at? How do you know what they're going to see?" And he goes, "Well, sit down. You got time?" And so I sat down. He kind of went clip by clip on the VCR at the time and showed me how to watch film. And he had me start writing stuff down. And he said, "How much time you got tomorrow?" And so, you know, a guy named Kirk Sawney, who just passed away a few months ago, I would come in every day and he would just let me watch film with them. And he would teach me how to watch film, and he would stop and say, "What do you see there?" And, you know, I think the power of an assistant coach is so important because, you know, just that connection he had with me really changed my life. You know, I got an entire year working with Coach Sawney where I basically got an internship on how to watch film. And he was a veteran at that time. He'd been a former head coach at 2 different places. And, you know, it was just amazing to be able to be connected with a person like that. You know, he would go as far as like, we're getting ready for a scout, and he would stop his scout and say, "Jamion, tell everybody let everybody know what you've seen here." Or, "Jamion, you know, let's finish off the scout here. What are you seeing here? What does this guy like to do?" And they really empowered me in front of the team. And it's crazy to think about. I mean, there's so many guys on our team, and I try to always put myself in that place. But not many guys have been player of the year in the state of Virginia or anywhere. Best team on a college team, best player on a college team, worst player on a college team, starter to bench guy, all those things. But I have that experience. And so I always try to use that experience with the guys that are either the best guys on the team or the worst guys on the team, because I think that's really important. And at the time, because I wasn't playing, I was one of the worst guys on the team. And I felt like they empowered me at such a level that it wasn't about how many points I was putting up in the game. It was about what I could do for our team. And again, so I try to take those kind of experiences and try to apply them to our team all the time. And hopefully you watch our teams play, you see our bench has tremendous energy. And, you know, I talk to our team about my experience being that guy on the bench and, you know, being the guy that was supposed to get being on the scout team and trying to get the team ready to play and what our responsibility is to that and how important that is. So, you know, those are my experiences as a player. And then I got lucky. I go home for a weekend in April. It's spring break. We didn't make the NCAA tournament. So I go home for a weekend and I go out with one of my cousins. You know, my cousin's a bouncer in Richmond. We're going to go out. And when I get there, there's 2 guys there. And we start kind of talking. Both those guys all went to Emory and Henry. And we're just kind of talking basketball. And they're kind of saying, "Well, what do you want to do next?" And, you know, I was like, "Well, I want to coach. I want to get into coaching." And I had a chance maybe to go be an operations guy somewhere. And he goes, "Well, let's talk some basketball." So we get out the napkins like we all have done, which is always a great moment. And we start kind of drawing stuff up. And by the end of the conversation, one of the guys says, "Hey, why don't you come help me coach my AAU team this weekend?" So I said, "All right, you know, sure." So I go and I will come up and coach the AAU team. And then 2 weekends later, he's like, "Why don't you come back again?" So I kind of go back and we coach, and then we play in a tournament. And so we coach through this stuff, and it's a great time. My dad's pissed because I'm driving back and forth, you know, using up all the gas, which is a big thing there, I guess. But I decided to go. And I go, and at the end of the tournament, we were actually coaching at Charlie Weber, who Will Hardy, who's assistant for the Spurs now, was on that team. He was the best player on that team. So, you know, it's great. We get there, and at the end of it, he goes, "You should call my dad." And I said, "Well, who's your dad?" He goes, "My dad is Bob Johnson. He's the head coach at Emory and Henry." And I had no idea this whole time. I'm just kind of like working and doing my part. And so, like, you know, kind of like Steve said, like, you end up in these positions sometimes just by being genuine and trying to work. And, you know, I called Coach Johnson the next day and set up an interview. And before I graduated, I had a job at Emory and Henry. And I actually turned down a Dobo job that paid $36,000. And I took the Emory and Henry job that paid $12,000. Probably a little naive, but I took the $12,000 because it was coaching, and the operations job wasn't coaching. And I wanted to get into coaching. I wanted to learn how to do it. And so that's when my journey really started, and just making those decisions. So I go to Emory Henry for 2 years working for Bob Johnson, guys like Nathan Davis, Mike Young, Jimmy Allen, John Kaufman, and my brother, who's assistant for the Wizards, all went to Emory, all worked at Emory. So we have a great Emory family. I go 2 years there, 2 years at Bucknell for Pat Flannery, and then 3 years with Tony Shaver, 1 year with Shaka Smart at VCU, which we all know changes your life. And then the next thing I know, I was a head coach at Mount St. Mary's for 6 years, where we went to the tournament twice. And then 1 year at Siena, where we finished second. And then I'm going into my second year at GW. And so I think all of our journeys and all your experiences are different. But I think being able to lean on those different experiences and just being objective with them, I think are really important. From all the different stops that I've been at, and again, I was a head coach at 29, so my journey is a little bit different than a lot. But it was all because I just got fortunate enough to be connected with the right people. When you look at Bob Johnson, my high school coach, number one, won over 700 games. Bob Johnson went over 370 games, I think it is. Jim Phelan, 820 games. You just kind of go down the list. Pat Flannery, 400 some games. Tony Shaver, 500 some games. Shaka Smart only wins. You kind of look at that, and then you can kind of learn from what the very best do. And then I don't want to say you emulate it, but you just kind of get that in your fabric of how you want to do it. And then when you work, and then there's some things you pull that you don't want to do. So, just been really fortunate, been in the right place at the right time, and then just really try to push it forward to what we got to be able to do. And, I can answer questions about any of the different stops, anything you want to ask me about. I'm pretty open. But I think the first part of my journey is pretty significant because, there's a lot of chance and there's a lot of luck in there. And then it's just about like taking the most of your opportunity when you get it.
Coach Christian, Darrell Robinson, Danville High School, Illinois. How you doing?
I'm great, Darrell. Thanks for asking a question.
No problem. Out of everybody, you've been blessed to be around a lot of great coaches. Who do you say who has the most impact on you today?
I would say Bob Johnson because he was the first guy I was with. At the time, he had been coaching for 26 years. And he was, he's an interesting guy. He was an Army Ranger in the Vietnam War. His dad was a high-ranking official in the Army. And he coached for 26 years. So his background was so different. But he was the first guy I was with. And so when I got with him, he just does a great job of teaching. I walked in his office. I come in there like Steve was kind of talking about. I was talking about recruiting and what guys we wanted to get and the guys that we knew. And the first thing he did was put a tape in the VCR and said, "I want you to summarize this." And it was a Don Meyer defensive video. And that was the very first thing he did. It was like, you're gonna coach basketball. And so he gave me 5 videos over the next 5 weeks to watch that I had to summarize. I had to come back in his office and teach him the video, even though he'd already seen it, already knew it. And I thought that just got me off to a great start. He gave me a fearlessness to go for it. We were playing Emory and Henry at the time. Mike Rhodes, who's actually at VCU now, was the head coach at Macon. And, Coach Johnson had been to the Final Four in Division III, and he had some great teams. But we played Macon, and we played them to a perfect game, and we lost 65-60. And it's one of those games where you look, you say, man, the kids did everything you asked them to do. We didn't turn the ball over. We played solid defense. They were just better than us. And we were kind of running to this thing where we couldn't get post guys in Southwestern Virginia. And so the fearlessness comes in because it's like we're playing to win the games. Like, we're not playing to play close. We're playing to win the game. And so he puts on this videotape of Grinnell that plays super up-tempo and super fast. And he goes, "What do you think about this?" And my first reaction was, this is insane. We can't do this. But he goes, "No, think about it. Can we win playing how we're playing, or are we going to keep losing?" And the reality was we were going to keep losing if we kept, we're going to lose 65-60. Well, what's the point of that? And he's like, "I think we have to change the way we play the game to give ourselves a chance to win." And so we went to a style. We changed up the style, and we took a shot every 11 seconds. We made you take a shot every 11 seconds and press and trapped and sub 5 minutes at a time and played 3 different presses with 3 different groups. And so I say the fearlessness comes in because it's like, the reality of it is if you're in a situation that you're not going to win, then you need to do something different to win. Last year we played Dayton, and they had a great team, And the first half, I think up until 12 minutes, we're down like 2. We're playing pretty close. We went out and we put a matchup zone in for a half. Like we put it in for 3 days before because we weren't going to beat them playing normal basketball. Right. And I think everybody else would say, well, let's go out here and let's slow the tempo and let's do this and let's do that. And it was like, that wasn't going to happen. So the fearlessness comes from working with him and saying, you know what, if we got enough time to prepare and our guys are locked in enough, then we can do anything. And so we went in there and gave ourselves a swing, gave ourselves a chance to beat a team who hadn't lost since November. And I think that's really impactful. But honestly, I would say every one of these guys taught me something. Pat Flannery runs his office like a business. As his operations guy and being connected with him and being in every meeting, I learned how to work with donors. I learned how to schedule our office. I learned how to keep people happy. You know, he would spend time with me. Everyone's always afraid of these operations jobs. But I feel like that's when you learn how to operate an office and how to work with people in the athletic department. Hell, most people get fired because they can't work with people in the athletic department. So I think the operation thing is really important. Tony Shaver is amazing with his best player. With his best players, he never messes around with his best players. Like, this guy can take 30 bad shots in a row, and he's not going to say anything because he wants that guy to have the ultimate confidence to go out and win. Coach Smart, I obviously hold in high esteem because he showed me how to use my blackness with my team. You know, and like Steve, you got a great advantage there with the guys you work with and your mentors, because like otherwise I'd have worked for only old white guys. So it's different for guys like us. It's different for us stepping into that chair and how we can operate and how we can impact. And so Coach Smart kind of showed me, like, just by watching him every day and watching the guy that looked like me go out there and do it, you know, like he would have more conversations after practice where he would just sit on the floor and talk to a guy. And then it was like that guy would go out the next week, 2 weeks, and be an amazing player. And people would think it was like how hard we worked, and we worked really hard. But I think it was truly because of his connection. You know, the only thing with Coach Smart, which is neat, you know, when you're going to go recruiting with him, he's going to ask you to come with him, but he's going to drive. I don't know why he does this. He drives the car, you know, but he gives you his cell phone. And when you look at his cell phone, he's just telling you who to text and what to say and all that. When you look at his cell phone, he's got every player that he's been talking to through the course of the day. You know, I'm like, man, like, you know, I would never have thought of that unless I was there with him. I also learned at VCU with him, like, how hard you can work. And we worked crazy hours. You know, Will Wade was an early morning guy. Rhodesy was out by 6 because he had a family. I'm a late night guy. And Shaka didn't try to say you had to be in the office at 9, you had to be out by whatever time. He just wanted you to work and get the job done. So all of us are able to kind of work our own way and have a level of success with it. And so I think with every one of those guys, honestly, I just learned a ton. Just picking up different stuff with them, not just basketball stuff, but how you would handle certain situations. And, you know, I think that's really important, that every experience you're having, there's something you can learn from it. You know, even if it's like something that really makes you mad, like trying to see the other side of it, I think is really important. Again, I've been fortunate to work with some of the very best and been able to kind of pull from their experiences.
Coach Christian, Sean Tucker, Chesapeake College women's basketball. How you doing?
Great, Sean. Great to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you talk about some things that outside of basketball, maybe that you took for granted prior to COVID, that now thinking, you know, through this time, like, hey, I'm not going to do that, or maybe I'm going to do this different, or maybe I'm not going to do this, you know, change up things. Talk about some things that you took for granted.
Yeah, you know, we do a lot of off the floor stuff with our team always. So what I've learned during COVID, honestly, more so is that what we're doing for our team was an anomaly of what most people were doing for their teams. You know, so people would say, like, man, are you talking to your team about this stuff? And I'm like, well, yeah, we talk about this stuff every day. You know, like, you know, we have tough conversations. We, you know, and we just made this we call it part of our way of life. That when something happens in the world or something happens in sport, we kind of sit down and share and we talk about it. And I think that's really important for all of us to be able to do, is to create these environments where everyone feels comfortable and everyone feels like they can speak. So I think during COVID, you know, we've been doubling down on that. I also do like a leadership enhancement program that I'm really passionate about, where it's like 15 seminars a year on different leadership components, where our guys read and do different stuff like that. So we've just been doubling down on that stuff during COVID, and it's been a great time to be able to focus in on that stuff. So we didn't feel like we had to reinvent the wheel. I would say something that I wasn't doing before COVID that we're doing more now is just the FaceTiming or the Zooming and just having that face-to-face interaction. We always had the guy, one of the things that was neat about being at the Mount for a long time, and, we're really starting to get it like that here at GW. Like our players would come by the office and just hang out for hours. So we always had this like real face-to-face component. And I mean, when I say hours, like a guy would have class from 8 to 9, and he might have a class till 1. He'd come to the office at 9 and hang out till it's time to go back to class. And we'd have multiple guys in there doing that. And so during COVID, we weren't able to do that. And right now we're limited to how many people we can have in our office. So the Zoom meeting and the FaceTime meeting and the things you can do there have become really important. So I would say the things I underappreciated was the connectivity, although we valued it at the highest level. And so what it's really challenged me to do to have to figure out, like, how can we stay connected if we can't touch? Like when you're coming to the office for us, like I'm hugging you every day. Like we're hugging every day. It might be the most sappy thing you may ever see. You can see like a grown man hugging a guy. But, it's important for us to teach our kids how to have love and to embrace love every day. I don't know if there's anything more important than to teach your players and how to embrace love and how to give love. And so we want to, again, I tell these guys, like, I love these guys, but when we get to the point where I love them, they got to, we got to get there, but when I love them, I'm like, I let them know every day. And we use that word a ton in our program. I mean, Ox has been around it, so he's probably seen it some. I mean, I love those guys, and I'm there for those guys and our staff. I want a staff that wants to be there for them. When they got something going on, we want to be there for them. And I think we got to teach them how to love. And you can't do that unless you love them. You got to love them when they're not doing the things you want them to do too. Evaluating, like I had a guy the other day get in trouble for something, and I'm sure he was expecting for me to kind of call and blow him out for it, and just so I can do that some. But more so, I want to figure out like what caused your action, what's going on in your life that caused you to act this way. And I think if we try to think that way, more so than, I'm embarrassed because he got in trouble. Well, like, what's going on? Like, why'd you do that? And really try to listen and figure out why. I mean, if we're trying to impact these guys' lives, and, like I'm a guy who's like, Steve talked about winning. Like, man, I never even talk about winning. Like, my thing is, if I love the guy enough, we call love is accountability, accountability is love. If I love him enough, and I love him enough to hold him accountable, and he loves me enough to accept being held accountable, we're gonna go win regardless. So we don't even talk about the result. We just talk about the process of it. And I think that's what we try to stand for. And so you have to do that when a guy does something that you may not want him to do. So much of us, we're like, man, we love this guy, we appreciate him. And as soon as he does something you don't want him to do, it's like, oh, this guy. Well, like, you gotta love him. You gotta love him through it because he's trying to figure it out. I remember when I was a player at the Mountain, we were bad. And, I came in the office one day after we had lost, and my assistant coach wouldn't even speak to us. And I'm like, I remember walking out of the office thinking, I need you more now. If I had the answer, I wouldn't really need you. I need you now to help me. And so I always want to hire people that want to do that and that really lead with their heart and really care that way. And so I think that's a really important part of it. I don't know if I answered your question, but, I just think we just double down on our love and our connectivity and how much we care. And I'm always asking coaches to do the same thing. Because like for some of your guys, you may be the only person, you may be the only father figure they've ever had. For some of them, you may be the only friend they've ever had. You may be the only person that's been consistent to them in their life. There's all these dynamics that we're crossing over as coaches that we're all crossing. And I think you're just trying to be in a place where if that guy's in trouble in 20 years, right? He's in trouble in 20 years and he needs help. He's going to call you before something happens. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we're fighting for. Every day we're fighting for that. We're fighting to show them that part. And if you love the guy enough and you care about enough, you hope you're that phone call in 20 years, in 25 years, and that guy really needs something, Like the guy might call me and ask me for money. I might not give him any money, but I'm glad I'm on that call list.
Right.
Because I know if I'm on that call list, I mean that means we did something that impacted him.
Cool. Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely.
Coach, my name is John Wagner. I'm a student manager at URI. I want to say thank you for coming on. I'm a huge fan of you. Much respect. How do you define leadership, and what's your definition of a good leader, player-wise or coach-wise?
Yeah, I think a good leader recognizes what's required in that moment and is fearless in the pursuit of that. And I think that's what's really challenging about leadership is I think we want a carbon copy. We want a guy who's tall in the middle of the room, who's shouting and giving direction. Sometimes your best leadership comes from someone who's willing to whisper. You know, when you think about great leaders in our history, from Gandhi to Martin Luther King to Obama, or, you know, these guys are great leaders. They weren't really loud, boisterous people, and they still impacted the world. And so to me, when you look at leadership, it's about really stepping into that moment and recognizing what's most important, and then being able to say and do whatever is needed. You know, like I have before every game, you probably see me pray, you know, and I just ask God to give me the strength to do what's needed in that moment. And sometimes I might need to be irate, not because I'm irate, but because they might need it. And then sometimes I might need to be calm, and it's because they need it. I might be irate. I know everyone thinks I'm not, like, I don't get really mad during the games, but it's really not about me. It's really about the guys. You know, I got a contract for 4 years. So I got 120 games left. You know, some of these guys have 30 games left. They have 10 games left, 15 games left. So I want to do everything I can and help those guys be at their very best. And so when I think about leadership, that's how I really define it. And to be great in that moment, John, you've got to study it so much, and you've got to learn so much from others and others' mistakes. And so, like, I constantly try to put myself in this environment where I'm like learning all day. So if you call me and I'm in the car, I'm definitely listening to a book or a podcast. If I'm on a walk, I'm listening to a book or a podcast. Or you guys have probably heard this part before, but I just think if you want to be a great leader, you want to start with your free time, and you want to really knock out your free time in the things that really matter. You know, one of the things I always say this, one of the things I did to help me with my time is I made a list of 10 things that I was doing when I was at my very best, right? So when I was at the very best of my life, what are these 10 things I was doing? And then I made my entire life about those 10 things, right? And by doing that, it just simplified for me, like anything else. So anything outside those 10 things, you know, I might be a guy, you know, you never know. Maybe I might be a guy that loves to go out on Saturday night and party all the time. But if it was outside those 10 things, because I wasn't at my best, I had to push that to a side. Someone asked about sacrificing earlier. Well, if you're going to be great at something, you got to sacrifice your free time to be great at it. You know, we all got 24 hours in a day. That's the one thing that's given every day. We all got 24 hours. And the person who's most intentional with those hours and those minutes and those seconds is going to have the better day. And if you keep having the better day, you're going to be the best. You're going to be the best when it's required to be at your best. And so I think, like, really looking at your time and your energy and where you're placing it, I think it's really huge and important.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Coach JC, Torrance, Ox, and Dine. It's always a pleasure to see you whenever it's on a Zoom, whether a Zoom or in person. You know, you always have the utmost respect for me for all of the success, and I'm always extremely proud of you. Quick question in regards to you being one of the youngest head coaches named. What is your advice, or what is your perspective or insight on older coaches that are on lower levels that want to try to get into business? Because, you know, we all know it's about relationships, but it's also about timing. So what is your take on, the older coaches who have put in a lot of years and labor, but, just haven't found the right opportunity? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I appreciate you so much, man. you're the best, man. Your energy is outstanding all the time, man. I enjoy when we get to interact in the summer, man. So I missed out this year, but we'll make up for it next year. I think my advice is like, number one for everyone, like just don't compare. I think it's really easy in the world we're in right now to compare everything. I mean, we have teenage suicides right now at the highest they've ever been because of Instagram and Twitter, because people are comparing. People are comparing themselves at 10 years old. So the amount of suicides that's going up is incredible because of this thing of comparing. My son's 8 years old and he's like trying to start his own YouTube channel because he's watching other people do it. So it's like this whole comparing thing, I think is something we've got to really work on as a culture. And I think in our game, I think just don't compare. Like our journeys are all our journeys and are all differently. And I think owning your journey and where you are in it. And one thing I love about you, Ox, is that you're always happy with whatever you're doing. And there's a lot of guys like you coach your team like you're coaching a college team, or when you coach a younger team, you're coach like your energy is infectious, and so you're changing those players' lives. And I always love that about you. And I think I meet some guys who are trying to get in. They might be a little bit older, and they're just not even happy with where they are. And I'm like, well, like if you're chasing something just to say you conquered something, like I don't want a person who wants to conquer things. I want to be with someone who wants to empower people, and that's a big difference. And I do think you're a person who empowers people. And so I think that's a big part of it. And, and I think like, man, like, if you're happy with what you're doing, you're happy with your life, man, like enjoy that. Like, I mean that, like, and I've moved a ton. So everyone probably says, well, that's easy for you to say, but like, man, I think happiness is really important. When you're able to come home and spend time with your family and have the life that you have, for everything you do and every level you step up to, there's a sacrifice. And man, we don't know how the people in our lives will handle the sacrifice. I remember when I got to VCU, I told my first wife, I said, all right, it's going to change. Shaver wants you out of the office by 4:00 on a Friday. And I said, we got to VCU and they just come out the Final Four. I told her, I said, it's going to change. And I think she heard me, but I don't think she fucking heard me. Right. And so it changed. And, within a year, that relationship basically evaporated into nothing, and that, those things can happen when you're having these huge pendulum changes in your lifetime. And I have a peace with that and understanding with that. And I just think like looking at our entire lives and making sure that your entire life structure can handle the move you're going to make. Right? Because it doesn't mean anything if you make it to the thing that you wanted most, but you're there celebrating by yourself. It then doesn't mean anything. Those people that you wanted with you are still with you in that moment, but they're not with you in the way that you wanted them to be there. Right? And so I think just evaluating all that, I kind of gave you like a big thing there, but I think that's a huge part of it is, a huge part of it is like, you're going to sacrifice something, but recognizing that some of the sacrifices you can account for, but some of them you won't be able to account for.
I appreciate that, as always.
I got you, brother.
Hey, Coach, I got one for you. David Belfield from Army, West Point. If you could go back to your days as an assistant, I know you didn't have a ton of years before you became a head coach. What are some of the things that you would have done differently as you were preparing to eventually become a head coach?
Yeah, Dave, you work with Wilkins?
Yep.
Man, that's the best right there. You can learn from him every day. That guy he's the best. He taught me. He taught a ton of people now that are coaching. He's a guy that really brought a lot of guys along. So you're fortunate to be with him every day. He's the best. What I did, I'll say what I did when I was an assistant. And I started when I was at Emory and Henry. I really kept really, really good notes all the time. So I kept a journal. Now I've got probably 20, 25 of these journals. And I would write down stuff that I liked and stuff that I didn't like. And I thought it really helped me when I became a head coach because I had a strong idea of what I wanted to do. Each summer when I was an assistant, I would go sit with 2 to 5 head coaches or assistant coaches around the country. And I wasn't trying to get a job. Like, I wish I was like smart enough to do that. But I would go sit with the head coach at Gettysburg because he ran Princeton. And I wanted to know the Princeton offense. I would go, I would call the beat writer for Tom Izzo at Michigan State, because beat writers, they're around the program so much. They give you great influence. They know so much about those programs that you can really get an idea. So I would do that every summer, sit down with 2 to 5 guys and talk with them and show up with questions to ask them. And so I thought that really helped me. And so when I got to become a head coach, I knew how I wanted to play. I knew what kind of players I wanted. As you're a head coach longer, you kind of changes. I think at first I was like, oh, we want all these athletic guys. And then I realized we couldn't make any shots. And I was like, I don't want to lose because we can't shoot. So I've kind of changed a good bit along the way. But I think those things kind of happen. But I think really keeping great notes. I mean, it's okay to keep notes on your boss on things that you don't want to do. Just so you know, like that's not going against your boss. Like you talk about, you go in, you have a great conversation, what you guys got to do. You're going to go out and do what he tells you to do. But it's good for you to write down that situation and how you would do it differently. Because I think that's how you learn. Like we do this with our players. Like I'll say, if a coach says, seam the ball up, you should seam the ball up. You should not seam it when you want to. Like that's how I write it in my journal. And that's how you kind of give the information to our players. Like it seems really elementary, but I think it really helps, and I think you can do that with your head coaches too. Like just write it down. And that way, like for me, when I write it down, I can memorize it. And so when the situation comes back up, like I called Shaver last year and I said, Coach, why'd you play Danny Sumner when he was a freshman? He wasn't ready, and because I remember him doing that and I wanted to know why. And then I turned around and started playing one of our guys more. And so, but now at the time I was like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. I would have made him earn it, whatever. But then when you're in that chair, you want to have that other perspective. That other perspective matters. And so I think that's important. So I would say keep great notes, know what you want to do, how you want to play and all that stuff. But remember, you're going to most likely get a team that isn't good. So you're going to have to compromise on some things that are important to you until you can get it to the level you want it to. It's kind of like I always say, you got to bridge it to get it to how you want it. And so in year one, now some guys are different. They'll say like, nope, you got to set a standard, no doubt. But in year one, something might happen. You might handle it differently than you do in year 4. Like year 1, you might get rid of a guy. He messes up, skips practice, you might get rid of him. In year 3 and 4, you might say, well, let's reassess where we are. And so I think when you become a head coach, you have more grace for other head coaches because you recognize that all the situations are different.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Coach, my one quick question for you tonight. You were fortunate to be a head coach at an early age, and you've now been a head coach at 3 places. So you've had your first year at a program 3 times. Can you take just a second and talk about, how you've changed or evolved over that time, or, just what you felt like you did really well in your first year, their one experience, or that you didn't do well, just anything about that first year during those 3 programs?
Yeah, so the first thing we do, which I think has been effective, and we missed on a couple last year, but we're pretty effective. So the first thing we do, JD, when we get there is I don't believe in making any rash decisions the first couple weeks. So I always try to hire my operations person first because I feel like the operations person is the person who's going to be meeting new people and learning how the building operates and all those things. So everyone always rushes out to hire assistants. I always hire the operations person first. I want them right beside me in everything we're going to do. I think that's a really important position. So what we do is we basically, and I learned this from from consultants, we're going to bring in every player and we're going to ask them about every person in the organization. Academic coordinators, strength coach, trainers, everybody, every player. And we're going to do that for every person within the organization. Because I think what you need at the beginning is you need information. you think you're walking into a situation and AD is going to tell you, oh, you got a talented team. Like they're going to tell you all this stuff. And you're going to get there and be like, well, no, we're not that talented. We don't have this. We don't have that. Like that's what happens when you get there. So you need information. So I think you come in and you don't make any rash decisions. You try to observe. And so what happens is when you ask all those questions, JD, what you end up getting is a really great picture of what the main issues are and some things and who's close with who, who's connected with who. Because you really don't know that when you walk into the door, right? And so we've done that every spot, and it's really been effective. During that time, we're also, and we do a thing where we know what we want at each position. 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. We want them shooting from 3, how big we want them, what we want them shooting the ball from, all those things. We have a really detailed idea of our system. And over the first couple of weeks, it gives us the ability to kind of look into the film of each guy, the film of all the recruits, all that stuff. It just gives us a lot of information that first 2 weeks. And then I think as you're getting that information, like it's really valuable because like, let's say you want a player to leave, you have an opportunity there kind of that first couple of weeks to kind of evaluate that and to do that. And that's kind of part of what we have to do. But it gives you a chance to have like great information because there might be a guy that played really badly for the last guy who's going to play great for you. And vice versa, maybe a guy that played great for the last guy who's going to be terrible for you because your system's going to be different. So I think taking the time and being patient to gain a ton of information, we've done that at 3 different stops. And we missed on a couple guys last year that we thought would have performed better and they didn't. And so that hurt us late in the year last year. But for the most part, I think we've gotten it right for the most part. Just because you're coming in and like not being biased. I think everyone comes in and they're either saying, oh, these guys are bad or all these guys are good. And really it's just like, let's just observe. Let's just see how these guys operate. And like, it's amazing what happens when you don't do anything, when you just watch. They get more nervous when you just watch than if you're doing something. So we just try to just watch. And then what I do is I come back and do that again about 5 weeks later. As we're starting to try to implement some things in our culture and stuff. Some people say you come in day 1 and you're establishing a culture. I think you are in one regard, but I don't think you can implement it all until you know who you're working with. So like, part of your culture is being on time. So you might say, hey, only rule we got for the first 4 weeks is just be on time. Right? And then that's the rule for the first week. It doesn't mean in 2 months you can't add another rule. I think people feel like you have to come in on day 1 and give them everything. Well, these guys have different habits, not bad or good. They have different habits. So you have to you try to help them find their way through their different habits. So I think just getting that information at the beginning is really important. I think hiring the right people that fit not just what you need right then, but where you want to go. I think is a challenge because it's going to be easy to say, we're going to hire this guy to get these players or this or that. Maybe that's the right move. Maybe it isn't. But I think you just want to make sure that that's going to work for you now and it's going to work for you in the future. And understand that, and I believe this, whoever you hire, you have to be able to fire. You probably heard me say that before. So it's one of those things where you have to be connected enough and know that person is going to push forward, or you have to know that you're going to have to get off it. Most of that's 4 to 5 year opportunities. So the clock is ticking and you can't afford to make a staffing error for too long. So I think giving yourself more time, I think is pivotal and really important. I think those are some of the things that we've done well for the most part, and we've made some mistakes and those things kind of happen. I think not leaning on one player too early. There's going to be one guy at 2 of my stops of the 3. There's been a guy who was, coach, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Was like that guy. And then by week number 3 in the season, he was like, I don't want to say a cancer to the team, but he wasn't living up to the stuff that he said the first couple of days. So I don't want to be connected to one guy too soon because I want to see how the group dynamics work. And so I kind of keep everybody at bay until we start to see how they interact. And then we start to kind of bring everybody in because you just don't know. And I think you can lose your team if you connect with the wrong guy and the rest of the team doesn't mess with that guy. You can lose your team.
Do you try to do that with your staff as well? Don't lean on one guy too much early and kind of same type of observation.
The whole first year, is all information getting. Just like get as much information as possible. You know, when I meet with, like, I'll meet with the players a good bit. And the only thing I'll ask is, how's our team doing? And I'll just sit and wait and listen to what they're going to say. And I'll do it with them individually. I'll do it with them as groups. You know, I kind of mix them all in different ways because I want to get different perspectives. And I do the same thing with the staff. I do the same thing with the athletic trainer, the strength coach, you know, academic person. And I just want them to give me information. That whole first year, honestly, is just getting information. And I want to get great information so I can make the right decisions. I mean, you probably saw this year we had a few guys leave out. We had a few guys graduate early. We're getting great information, and then we're going to make a decision at the end to kind of see what we can do and where we can go.
Coach, I got another quick question. So you've had a couple opportunities to interview for head coaching jobs. What are some things that you did to prepare to that you felt like I won this interview? What are some things that you did in each interview? Maybe something that you did different that you didn't do in the previous interview.
Yeah, well, the first interview was different than the other. You know, once you become a head coach and you have a level of success, the phone call is different. You know, the phone call, once I became a head coach, was like, hey, we want you to interview for this job. And I had it, you know, I'm in there. So I just got to go in and kind of present well because they have knowledge of what you've done. You have like a resume that's real in terms of as a head coach. But I think as an assistant coach, the best thing I did was I got with an interview specialist. And this woman taught me basically how to interview. And she asked me a ton of questions. We had 3 or 4 different sessions, and she asked me a ton of questions. And she was like, you don't want to use that word? That sounds like this. And she was like very critical. She was excellent at it. I think she's actually an agent now, which makes sense. I mean, she was amazing. And she just kind of, you know, she was so good with that when I went in for my interview, I was ready to go. You know, I was in a great spot, and she put so much pressure on me in the interviewing process in practice that when I got in there with the room, you know, I was really ready to go. I mean, there's certain things that happen on the interview where, you know, when you're an assistant, the hardest part when you're an assistant, and JD, I'm going to talk to you about this later, you know, is you're not used to talking about yourself. And that person who's going to win that interview is going to come in there and they're going to talk about themselves. And that's what that AD wants to hear. They want to hear that person say like, hey, I did this. We're going to do this. Like, that's what they want to hear. It sounds kind of weird because it's like you're a team player, but then when you get to that spot, they want someone who has the arrogance and the confidence enough to say what they're going to do and be convicted by it. And that was the hardest thing for me in the interview process that she was working to get out of me. She's like, no, like you need to say, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. Not, hey, we did this at VCU and it worked. You don't want to hear that. He wants to know what I think works, and he wants to know that I'm convicted for it. So, you know, the interview specialist really helped me with that, to be more demonstrative in what we were trying to do and why it was important, and really be able to dig in deep on why those things were important. So I would say that's the number one thing that I did was that interview specialist, like she really impacted me and really helped me at the highest level.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Coach Andre from Manhattanville. You touched on it a little bit. Can you talk about the importance of creating relationships with the other members of the athletic department, the trainers, the AD, assistant AD, and even the broader college community admissions?
Yeah, you know, I think it's so important. I think it makes our job way more fun. And there's just so many times where, you know, I mean, I love my staff. These guys are amazing. We work tirelessly together, and it's awesome, you know. But, you know, I like being a part of a bigger community where we really connect and we really care about each other, and I can help assist you in other ways, and where coaches feel like they can talk to their teams, and they can do vice versa. So I just think it's important for the overall environment. You know, I've worked at, and this is on purpose, I worked at Mount St. Mary's where there's no football. I worked at Siena where there's no football, and I worked at GW where there's no football. So I am purposely trying to stay away from football, right? Because I think when you get in an environment where there's football, they always say this, football coaches take the air out of whatever room they come in. So I want to stay away from those guys as much as possible because I want basketball to matter on my campus. You know, I want to be able to walk in a room and people say, oh, that's our basketball coach. Now, hey, the football coach, you know, like there's a weight in that in our athletic departments. And so I want to make sure that I can go sit with the janitor and and we can talk and hang out, and then we can be connected in that way. And so I think, you know, for me, that's why that's so important. Is just being able to connect, and then also being able to get information. I mean, no one knows the building and what's going on more than the janitors. So, you know, and no one thinks those guys, no one's talking to those guys. So if you go in there and talk to them for 10 or 15 minutes, you're going to find out everything about your team. You know, my mom and dad are both teachers. So I grew up in the high school. And, you know, growing up in the high school, that's, you know, that's how you kind of learn all the information of what's going on. It's through the janitors and through the aides. So, you know, I've just tried to continue doing that every stop that I've had.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
We got time for another question, maybe two, if anyone has one.
I'll ask a question.
Anyone got? Oh,
Coach Christensen, I appreciate you coming on and sharing. First of all, my name is Jamion with the University of South Dakota. My question is kind of going along the lines of your multiple stops. Talk about how your evaluation of players changed at each spot you've been at and how that's developed into your system and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always had a pretty good idea of what we wanted. You know, I think in knowing what you want it to look like, I think is really important. I think you want to evaluate what talent is to you. And I think that's a really important thing. What's a talented point guard to you? What's a talented center? And really define that. You know, there's so many people that don't define that. You know, like we took Jalen Pickett at Siena, and no one knew what position he was. You know, everyone's kind of like, man, what position is this guy? And because we define our positions a certain way, and we defined him as a combo guard, and we value combo guards in our system at the highest level. So some people thought he was a 2, he's a 3, whatever. But we're like, he's a combo. He's a 6'4.5" combo. And that's the size that we're looking for at those positions. So we just took him. Now, we didn't know he was going to beat Zion Williamson out for freshman of the week. You know, we didn't know he was going to be one of the draft boards after a freshman year. But we just took him because we believed that he fit our system so well. And I think knowing how you want to play and how you want it to look, I think is really, really important. You know, like if I want to play flex, then I want 6'4" guys that are tweeners, 6'4" to 6'7" tweeners. You can win that way if that's how you decide to play. Right. If you're going to go ball screen offense, I need a center that's finishing at the rim. I can't have a center that's finishing below the rim. Right. You block all the time. So I think like knowing your style of play and knowing like what talent is to you. And I do think that's the difference when you go from being an assistant to a head coach. You know, now you're the final talent evaluator. Mm. And I think when you're an assistant, when I was an assistant, I'm like, hey, I think this guy can really play great. My head coach would be like, well, no, I don't like that guy. And I'm like, I don't understand why. But he just didn't feel like that he could coach that guy for whatever skills he had, you know? And so I think when you're a head coach, being really involved with your recruiting, because you're the talent evaluator. And so you want to make sure you're seeing enough of these guys so you can kind of wait out who's best. You want to be communicating with these guys because you want to wait out who's best and who you think you can coach, you know, who you think you can coach at the highest level. So to me, it's not really about, I mean, and I could be completely off base with this. Everyone's like, well, we're in the A-10 now, so it's about level. Well, it is, but I still got to evaluate, you know? So like at the end of the day, like I still got to evaluate whether a guy's going to be in the Northeast Conference or he's going to be in the ACC. And I want to evaluate enough of the guys to know that this guy fits. At the end of the day, it's all about finding a guy that you're going to work the least for, but going to get the most production out of. Mm. Right?
Yeah.
And so, because you find that guy's so valuable.
Right.
You know, and when you really think of the guys you've recruited in your lifetime, your best guys have wanted what you offered and then came there and just took off with it.
Yeah.
The guys that we spend all this time chasing and running around on rarely turn out to be what we thought they were going to be.
Very true.
You know, so I don't know what that correlation is.
Right.
But I just think like if you want a Pepsi and you walk into 7-Eleven, you're going to buy a Pepsi. And I think sometimes we have these guys walking to 7-Eleven and we're Sprite and they want Pepsi.
Right.
You know, and so they might settle for Sprite, but maybe they're not going to give Sprite the same kind of love they are Pepsi, you know? And so I think evaluating who you can coach, who you can inspire, because I think the talent gap is, I think there's a talent gap, so I'm not saying talent is irrelevant, but it's smaller than what you think.
Right.
And maybe the size gap is different, but the talent gap is, you know, if I put this guy in this system versus another system, they're going to look completely different. And so if I really can evaluate what talent is, you know, we got a chance to be pretty good. And if I can't, then we either got to change our style up or we're going to take a lot of L's.
Right. It's good. Jalen Pickett was a very good get too. Mad that we didn't get him.
Man, so happy, man. He's a great one. He's got a great basketball IQ. He never lost. His JV football team, his varsity football team, his high school basketball team, his prep school team, and Siena.
Yeah.
The guy just wins at everything. He didn't lose a pickup game all summer. He didn't lose a 3-on-3 game all summer. Some guys just win.
Yeah.
And have that component, and he's one of those guys.
Do you evaluate winners?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things you have to evaluate is how this person affects winning.
Right.
But also how they affect losing. Like, you watch a guy play, like the most valuable guy on your team is a guy that when he scores a basket, everybody on the team goes crazy for.
Yeah.
Like the guy that scores the points and no one stands up and no one cheers for, well, he's not giving your team any energy.
Right.
So when your team's not getting energy from your best player, it's really hard to be at your best. Like his energy's got to challenge everybody to rise. His energy can't push everybody else's down. So that winning part and that competitive part, I think is really important. And like, I want to know, like, you know, if you're playing AAU and your team is losing or underachieving, we're probably not going to take you and people are going to be mad at us. But I just think like some people just win. They just know how to win. They know when to sacrifice and they know when to push.
For sure.
You know, we call them, you know, you guys probably heard this before. We call them HPIs, high potential individuals. And a high potential individual is just a person, whenever they walk into the door, their organization is better. So if you can line your locker room with HPIs, you're always going to overachieve. And it's just those guys that like, man, when he shows up, everything just got better. And I think we're on a hunt to find those kind of players and those kind of people.
Appreciate it. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Hey, Coach. Tiger Aldridge, Brunswick Community College. Don't have a question for you. I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate the story you shared about Coach Sawney. I got to know him when he was part of the UNCW staff and family down here in Wilmington. And so we were very sorry to hear about his passing, but I really appreciate you sharing that very nice story about Kirk, man. And I want to say thank you about that. So appreciate that.
Thanks, Tiger. He's an amazing man, and I think, you know, what he was able to do for my life and a lot of guys' lives, you know, and I think we all have that impact on our players. And that impact that we have on our players, it bounces off to other generations of people. And so just don't ever underestimate it.
Definitely. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, Coach Christian, obviously, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. I think I saw a ton of people writing, and I know a lot of people got some good notes, and I'm excited to go back and hear and listen for myself. It's hard to obviously take notes and moderate. So, but I'm really thankful that you came on and shared your wisdom and insight from your journey with us. So thank you again.
Yeah, I appreciate it. My number's in the chat. Anybody that needs anything from me, just give me a yell. Always here to help, man. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep impacting young people's lives, and have fun doing it. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. My bad, I'm muted. Thank you again for coming on. Really quick, wanted to give a shout out to a few guys doing some of their own ventures. It was mentioned earlier. Lamar Barrett has his Unmasked series. I think he just dropped one yesterday with Coach Chris Kreider. So I think what he's doing is really good with his Unmasked, letting people see the side of the business that isn't, you know, always kind of what everyone's talking about. So I've really learned a lot. So obviously Lamar Barrett's got Unmasked. Ryan Price has a Tuesday night Zoom, Let's Grow. He's got really good guests on there. He does a really good job with that. Coach Andre Gray does one. I know it's not his Zoom per se, but He's done a lot of help with the guys in the Carolinas. Obviously, the Alvin Brooks has his Be Ready deal. So there's a lot of guys doing good Zooms. I see Caleb Cooper on here. He does a panel also. So obviously, I know everyone's kind of getting back to work and everything, but there's still opportunities to grow and network and things. So obviously, really appreciate you guys coming on tonight with us, Coach Christian, Coach Powell, and Coach Smith. Really enjoy hearing your journeys, and I know that there's going to be a lot to come from this. So thank you all again for joining, and we'll be back again next week. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, David.